Welcome to my dear students. Already I started a lecture series on diabetes and hyperglycemia, but due to some of my personal reason and occupancy, I was not able to continue the lecture series. So today I am starting again. So already in the previous lecture we grossly we understood what is what is diabetes and what are the types of diabetes. Okay, so to understand if you want to know more about the diabetes and you want to control it, then you need to understand the glucose transportation in our body. So basically the glucose from the food, from the GI tract, the glucose transport and it reaches the various body cells, where it is going, how it is going, all these things you need to understand. So the digestion of starch, the food enriched by starch when we are eating, okay, that will convert into glucose, and this will start from our mouth itself, but primarily it takes place in the small intestine. The starch and glycogen are broken into glucose by the enzyme called amylase and maltase, and the sucrose and lactose are broken down by sucrase and lactase respectively. So now once glucose is ready for absorption, it travels from GI tract to systemic circulation. Okay, so there are and from the systemic circulation, the glucose can be taken to either by the liver, or it will go to the adipose tissue, which is nothing but our body fat. It may go to muscles or any other body cells, where this glucose will be broken down, and it will release energy to do all the metabolic action and the cell mechanism. This needs energy. That energy will come from the glucose. Okay, so this glucose absorption and distribution in our body is not a simple diffusion. It requires various transporters and chemicals to get absorbed and get transported. So there are various phases. If we grossly see the things happening during the glucose transportation and absorption, the first is it will be absorbed through GI tract and it will go to systemic circulation. Okay, and once the glucose concentration is high in the systemic circulation, this will work as a signaling, and this signal will excite the first thing is the glucose will get absorbed through microvilli and it will come to systemic circulation. And once it's come to systemic circulation, then that glucose will work as a signaling and it will excite the pancreatic beta cell, which will release insulin. This is the second thing. So each part we will understand in an elaborated way. The third thing, the glucose uptake into liver and the glucose uptake by other body cells. So these are the major 4 phenomena we need to understand. Now this, as I told, this glucose absorption and distribution is not a simple thing. It requires various transporters. So these glucose transporters are broadly classified into two categories. One is called GLUT, is GLUT, glucose transporter. Another is SGLT, sodium glucose transporters. So these glucose transporters are categorized from by the number 1 to 14 and SGLT by 1 to 6. Okay. Now we will understand the first phase where the glucose is getting transported from GI tract and it's going to systemic circulation. Okay. So once the glucose is ready, these are the microvilli. Okay, these are the microvilli in the GI tract. So now if you see in that picture, the glucose need to cross the apical membrane, the basolateral membrane and the endothelial membrane. So it need to cross, and this will not happen very easily. So once the glucose is ready for absorption inside the GI tract, then the SGLT, so this is the sodium glucose transporter, this will become active. Okay, and two sodium cation and one glucose molecule. This sodium cation is also helpful for glucose transportation through apical membrane by the use of SGLT1. Okay, so now through SGLT1, one glucose molecule and the two sodium cation, it travel across the apical membrane and it reaches inside the epithelial cell. Now it need to cross the basolateral membrane. Now inside the epithelial cell, the sodium cation concentration is more. It also need to travel the basolateral membrane. So there one pump is present which is called sodium potassium ATPase. Sodium potassium ATPase. Using this pump, the sodium cations, this is the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Okay, so using this pump, the potassium ion, the potassium cation from the systemic circulation, it will enter inside the epithelial cell, and the sodium cation which enters inside the epithelial cell from the GI tract, this will cross the basolateral membrane. Okay. Similarly, for glucose transportation from epithelial cell to systemic circulation, another pump is present which is GLUT2. So this is GLUT2. So using this GLUT2 pump, the glucose transport across the basolateral membrane. Now the endothelial membranes, those are through this sodium ions and the glucose can transport, glucose can move to systemic circulation very easily by paracellular transport between the cells, or it's called transcytosis, which is nothing but the vesicular transport of macromolecules from one side of the cell to other sides. So this is the first part where the glucose from the GI tract travel across the apical membrane as well as the basolateral membrane, and then it will come to systemic circulation. Okay, so to cross the apical and the basolateral membrane, the first is apical membrane. It is in to cross the apical membrane, the required glucose transporter is called SGLT, which is there in the microvilli. So this SGLT1 is activated, and through that 2 sodium cation and 1 glucose molecule, it enter inside the epithelial cell, and then again another pump is activated, which is called sodium potassium ATPase. So through that the potassium cation enters from the systemic circulation to the epithelial cell, and the sodium cation, it's come out from epithelial cell. And another important pump which is required for the glucose transportation, so that is GLUT2. So using this GLUT2, the glucose molecule, it will come out from the epithelial cell. And now the membrane which is to be crossed, it's called endothelial membrane. So this is through that the glucose, the macromolecules can travel very easily through transcytosis or the paracellular transport between the cells. So in this way, the glucose from GI tract, now it's come to systemic circulation. So this is all about the today's discussion. So hope you understood the mechanism, and in the next lecture we will discuss the excitation of the pancreatic beta cell, and so on. We will continue this lecture series. So thank you so much, students. Thanks for your patience.